Marcus Bellamy slammed the heavy oak door behind him, his father's venomous words still ringing in his ears like church bells tolling a death sentence. And he knew with absolute certainty that he would never set foot in that mansion again. The rain pelted his face as he strode away from the estate, his boots splashing through puddles that reflected the gray autumn sky. 26 years he had endured their cruelty, their constant reminders that he was the spare son, the disappointment, the one who preferred books to business and kindness to cunning. His older brother Gerald had always been their golden child, groomed to inherit the family's extensive land holdings and merchant interests. Marcus had been tolerated at best, ridiculed at worst, but tonight had been the final straw. His mother had announced at dinner that she had arranged a marriage for him to some vapid nobleman's daughter from 3 counties over. A girl he had never met, chosen solely because the union would expand the Bellamy influence. When Marcus had dared to refuse, his father had stood from the table, face purple with rage, and declared that if Marcus would not serve the family's interests, he could leave with nothing but the clothes on his back. So he had. He walked for hours through the storm, until the elegant streets of the merchant district gave way to rougher roads, and those roads became muddy tracks leading toward the frontier territories. He had a small pouch of coins he kept in his jacket, enough to get by for a few weeks if he was careful. Beyond that, he had no plan, only a burning desire to be as far from his family as possible. By the time dawn broke, Marcus found himself in a rough border town called Greywater Crossing. It was the kind of place where humans and orcs traded uneasily, where frontier justice ruled, and where questions about a man's past were considered poor manners. He spent his first coins on a hot meal and learned from the innkeeper that there was a small settlement about 10 miles north, right on the edge of orc territory, where a man could buy cheap land if he was brave or foolish enough to farm it. Marcus was feeling both. 3 days later, he stood in front of a weathered land office, signing papers that made him the owner of 40 acres of rocky frontier land and a half-collapsed cabin. The clerk, a grizzled man missing 2 fingers, had looked at him with something between pity and amusement. "You know the orcs come through there regular, right? Hunting parties, mostly. They have not caused trouble in a few years, but folks get nervous." "I will manage," Marcus had said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. That had been 2 months ago. 2 months of backbreaking work, repairing the cabin, clearing fields, and preparing for winter. 2 months of isolation broken only by occasional visits to town for supplies. 2 months of proving to himself that he could survive without his family's money or approval. And 2 months of catching glimpses of orc hunting parties passing through the woods that bordered his property. They never approached, but he could see them sometimes in the early morning mist, tall figures with green skin moving silently between the trees. His neighbors, the few that existed this far out, had warned him to stay inside when the orcs were near, to never approach them, to treat them like the dangerous savages they supposedly were. But Marcus had seen the way they moved through the forest with reverence, taking only what they needed. He had found their campsites after they departed, always carefully restored, fires properly doused, no trace of waste. Whatever the orcs were, they were not the mindless brutes his society claimed. Still, he kept his distance. Until the morning he found her in his barn. He had gone out to check on his 2 goats, the only livestock he had managed to afford so far. The barn door hung crooked on its hinges, something he kept meaning to fix, and it creaked loudly as he pushed it open. The goats bleated nervously from their pen, and that was when he saw her. An orc woman, huddled in the far corner behind a stack of hay bales. She was clutching her side, and even in the dim light filtering through the barn's gaps, Marcus could see the dark green of her blood soaking through her leather armor. Her skin was a deep sage green. Her black hair hung in a long braid over her shoulder, and two small tusks curved up from her lower jaw. Her pointed ears twitched as she watched him with eyes the color of amber. Filled with pain and wariness, for a long moment, they simply stared at each other. Marcus could see the knife at her belt, see the way her muscles tensed despite her obvious injury. She was preparing to fight or flee, even though either action might kill her. "You are hurt," Marcus said quietly, keeping his hands visible and empty. The orc woman's eyes narrowed. "I will leave. I only needed to rest." Her voice was deeper than a human woman's with a slight rasp, but her words were clear. Marcus found himself taking a step closer, then stopped when she flinched. "That wound needs treatment. You will die if it gets infected. Why would a human care?" The words were harsh, but Marcus heard the genuine confusion beneath them. "Because leaving an injured person to die would make me a monster, and I have spent my whole life trying not to become one." The words came out before he could think better of them, raw and honest. Something flickered in her amber eyes. Surprise, perhaps. She started to respond, then gasped as a shudder of pain ran through her. Her hand pressed harder against her side, and Marcus saw fresh blood seep between her fingers. "Let me help," he said, moving slowly toward her. "Please. I have medical supplies in the house. I studied with a physician before." He trailed off, not wanting to explain his past. "I know enough to clean and bind a wound. You would invite an orc into your home." Her voice was weak now, her skin taking on a grayish tinge that terrified him. "I am inviting an injured woman who needs help into my home. What you are does not change that." She tried to stand, made it halfway up, and collapsed. Marcus rushed forward, catching her before she hit the ground. She was heavier than a human woman would have been, solid muscle and dense bone, but adrenaline gave him strength. Her blood was warm and sticky against his hands, soaking into his shirt as he lifted her. "My name is Marcus," he said, more to keep her conscious than anything else. "What is yours?" "Thara," she whispered, her head lolling against his shoulder. "Thara of the Red Stone clan." He carried her into his cabin, kicking the door open and laying her carefully on his bed, the only bed. She was barely conscious now, her breathing shallow and rapid. Marcus forced himself into the calm, methodical mindset he remembered from his time studying medicine. That brief, wonderful year before his father had decided it was beneath the family dignity, and forced him into business training instead. He built up the fire, heated water, gathered his limited medical supplies. Then he carefully cut away the blood-soaked leather armor, revealing the wound beneath. It was a deep gash across her ribs, probably from a blade. Recent within the last few hours. Clean edges, which was good. But it was still bleeding, which was very bad. "This is going to hurt," Marcus warned, though he was not sure she could hear him anymore. He cleaned the wound with boiled water and the precious bottle of strong alcohol he had been saving. Thara jerked and moaned but did not wake. Her skin felt feverish under his hands. Working as quickly as he dared, Marcus stitched the wound closed with thread he had sterilized in boiling water. His hands remembered the motions even though it had been years. Needle piercing flesh, thread pulling tight, neat rows of stitches that would hold the skin together while it healed. When he finished, he bound her ribs with clean cloth strips and covered her with his thickest blanket. She lay still and pale, her breathing a little stronger now but still concerning. All he could do was wait. Marcus pulled his single chair next to the bed and settled in to watch over her. Outside, the sun climbed higher in the sky and his chores went undone. He did not care. A woman was dying or not dying in his bed, and nothing else seemed to matter. She woke after nightfall, her eyes snapping open with the alertness of a predator. For a moment confusion crossed her face, then memory, then something that might have been fear. Her hand moved to her side, found the bandages, and she looked at Marcus with an expression he could not read. "You actually did it," she said, her voice hoarse. "You helped me. I said I would. Humans say many things." She tried to sit up, grimaced, and fell back against the pillows. "How long was I unconscious?" "Most of the day. You lost a lot of blood." Marcus stood and ladled some water from his bucket into a cup. "Here, you need to drink." She eyed the cup suspiciously, and he could not blame her. He had no proof he had not poisoned it. After a moment, though, thirst won out over caution, and she drank deeply. When she finished, she looked at him again with those unsettling amber eyes. "Why?" she asked simply. Marcus sank back into his chair. "I suppose I am tired of people expecting the worst of each other. My family expected me to be cruel and ambitious. I disappointed them by wanting to be neither. Everyone expects orcs to be monsters. Maybe you are tired of disappointing people too." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "You know nothing about orcs. Then tell me. We have time." And so, through that long night, she did. Thara told him about the Red Stone clan, about their hunting traditions and their respect for the forest, about the harsh laws that governed orc society. She told him about the skirmish with human raiders that had left her wounded and separated from her hunting party. About how those raiders wore no uniforms or colors, just rough men looking to kill orcs for sport or bounty. "My clan will be looking for me," she said as the first light of dawn crept through the cabin's small window. "But they will not think to look near human settlements. They will assume I am dead." "Are you? Will they mourn you?" Marcus asked carefully, her face hardened. "My mother will. My sister. The others will see it as weakness that I allowed myself to be separated and injured. Our clan leader values strength above all else." There was a story there, Marcus thought, layers of pain beneath the words, but he did not push. Instead, he stood and stirred the pot of thin stew he had been keeping warm over the fire. "You need to eat, build your strength back." "I cannot stay here," Thara said, but her voice lacked conviction. "You cannot leave yet either. That wound needs at least a week to begin healing properly, and you are still weak from blood loss. Stay until you are strong enough to travel safely." She studied him for a long moment. "You would harbor an orc in your home for a week. What would your human neighbors think?" "I have no neighbors close enough to know or care, and even if I did, I stopped living my life according to what others thought the day I walked away from my family." Something in his tone must have resonated with her, because Thara nodded slowly. "1 week. Then I will leave and you can go back to your life." "Agreed," Marcus said, handing her a bowl of stew. That week turned into 10 days, because Thara developed a fever on the 3rd night that left her delirious and sweating. Marcus stayed by her side, changing her bandages, coaxing water and broth down her throat, and listening to her mumble in the orc language he could not understand. When the fever finally broke, she woke to find him slumped in his chair, asleep from exhaustion, his hand still holding a cool cloth he had been using to wipe her forehead. Thara did not wake him. She just watched him sleep, this strange human who had saved her life and expected nothing in return. His face was gentler in sleep, the worry lines smoothing out. He had kind eyes, she had noticed, brown and warm like river stones. His hair was dark and slightly too long, curling at the collar of his shirt. He was not built like a warrior, but she had felt the quiet strength in him when he lifted her, the sureness in his hands when he treated her wound. She owed him her life. That was not a debt easily repaid among her people. When Marcus woke, he found her sitting up in bed, still pale but alert. A genuine smile crossed his tired face. The fever broke. Thanks to you. Thara looked down at her hands, and Marcus realized it was the first time he had seen her show anything like uncertainty. I owe you a life debt, Marcus Bellamy. Such a thing is sacred among my people. You owe me nothing. I helped because it was right, not for payment. That only makes the debt more binding, she said seriously. Until I can repay what you have given me, I am honor-bound to remain and serve you. Marcus blinked. Serve me? No, that is not. I do not want a servant. What do you want, then? The question hung in the air between them. What did he want? He had spent so long running from what his family wanted that he had never stopped to consider his own desires. He looked at Thara, at the fierce pride in her eyes even weakened by injury, and something shifted in his chest. I want. He started, then stopped. An idea was forming, reckless and perfect. I want to make my family furious. Thara's eyebrows rose. An odd goal. My family disowned me because I refused an arranged marriage. They wanted me to marry some nobleman's daughter to expand their influence. I wanted to choose my own path. He stood and began pacing, the plan taking shape as he spoke. What if I did marry, but to someone they would find absolutely unacceptable? Someone whose very existence would be a slap in the face to everything they believe about status and propriety. Understanding dawned in Thara's eyes, followed by something that might have been anger. You want to marry an orc to spite your family? Yes, no, I mean. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. It sounds terrible when you say it like that, but think about it. You need somewhere to recover fully, and you said yourself that your clan will assume you are dead. If we married, you would have a home here, safety, a fresh start. And I would have the satisfaction of knowing my family is probably having collective fits of rage right now. A marriage of convenience, Thara said slowly. Exactly. We would both benefit. You get a home and I get revenge. We could be partners, friends even. You would have complete freedom to do as you please, and once you are fully healed and settled, if you want to leave, we could dissolve the marriage. No obligations beyond basic courtesy. Thara was quiet for a long time, her expression unreadable. Marcus felt his face heat. It was a stupid idea, impulsive and reckless. She was going to say no, obviously. Why would she agree to such an absurd arrangement? Your family would truly hate this, she asked finally, with every fiber of their being. A slow smile spread across her face, revealing her small tusks. Then I accept, Marcus Bellamy. Let us be married and drive your family to madness. Marcus laughed, surprised by the rush of excitement he felt. Really, really. Though I warn you, I am not easy to live with. I have been told I am stubborn and too independent. Good. I would not want an easy wife. I want an equal. Something flickered in her eyes at that word. Equal. Marcus wondered when the last time anyone had treated her as such was. 3 days later, when Thara was strong enough to walk without pain, they traveled to Greywater Crossing. The town clerk who had sold Marcus his land was also licensed to perform marriages, and if he was shocked by the sight of Marcus arriving with an orc woman on his arm, he hid it behind a professional mask. You are certain about this? The clerk asked Marcus while Thara waited outside. An orc wife will bring you nothing but trouble from the other humans around here. I am very certain, Marcus said firmly. Can you perform the ceremony or not? The clerk sighed and pulled out the necessary paperwork. It is legal, if unconventional. I will need both of you to sign, and 2 witnesses. The witnesses were found easily enough. 2 curious townsfolk who agreed for a few coins. The ceremony itself was brief and businesslike, nothing like the elaborate affairs Marcus's family would have expected. He and Thara stood side by side in the cramped land office, repeated the necessary vows, and signed their names in the marriage register. When it was done, the clerk handed Marcus a certificate. Congratulations, I suppose. You are now legally wed." Outside, standing in the dusty street, Marcus and Thara looked at each other. She wore a simple dress they had purchased that morning, dark green to match her skin, and she had taken her hair down from its usual braids so it fell in waves around her shoulders. She looked beautiful and fierce and completely out of place in the human town. "Well, wife," Marcus said, testing the word. "Shall we go home?" "Home," Thara repeated as if the word was foreign. "Yes, let us go home." They bought supplies with the last of Marcus's money, including seeds for spring planting, a third goat and a small pig. The merchant was openly hostile, charging them twice the fair price, but Marcus paid without argument. He could feel the eyes of the town on them as they loaded their purchases into the borrowed wagon, feel the weight of judgment and disgust. Let them stare. Let them talk. Word would spread, and eventually it would reach his family. That was rather the point. The trip back to the cabin felt different this time. Thara sat beside him on the wagon seat, close enough that their shoulders occasionally brushed. She pointed out signs of game in the forest, tracks Marcus would have missed, and told him which areas would be good for hunting come winter. She knew this land better than he did, he realized. She belonged here in a way he was still learning. "Thank you," Marcus said suddenly. "I know this arrangement benefits me more than you. I appreciate you agreeing to it." Thara turned to look at him, surprise clear on her face. "Why do you thank me? I get a home and safety. That is no small thing. Still, I do not imagine this is how you pictured your life going." A wry smile touched her lips. "I pictured dying in battle honorably before I reached 30. This is much better, I assure you. Before 30. How old are you now?" 23 by your counting. Among my people, I am already considered past the ideal age for marriage. Too old, too scarred, too stubborn. She said it matter-of-factly, but Marcus heard the old hurt beneath the words. "Their loss," he said quietly. "I think you are quite remarkable." Thara looked away quickly, but not before he saw the flash of vulnerability in her eyes. How long had it been since someone had complimented her? Since someone had seen her as more than just an orc, a warrior, a tool for the clan's use? When they reached the cabin, Marcus insisted on carrying the heavy sacks while Thara directed where everything should go. Her wound was healing well, but he did not want her straining it. She protested at first, then seemed to accept his concern with bemused tolerance. "You are very soft for a human," she said, watching him haul a sack of grain into the small storage shed. "Soft, gentle, kind. Most humans I have encountered were neither." Marcus set down the sack and wiped sweat from his forehead. "Most orcs I was told about were violent and cruel. Yet here you are, giving me directions instead of orders, and you have not tried to kill me once." "The night is young," Thara said, but her eyes crinkled with humor. They fell into a routine over the following weeks. Marcus did the heavy labor of the farm, clearing more land and repairing structures. Thara, as she healed, took over the hunting and the more delicate tasks her stitches would allow. She was an excellent shot with the bow she made from materials in the forest, and her knowledge of the land meant they ate better than Marcus had in months. Rabbit stew, venison roasted with wild herbs, fish from the nearby creek. She could make a meal out of practically nothing. In the evenings, they sat by the fire and talked. Marcus told her about his childhood, about the suffocating expectations and the constant comparisons to his perfect brother. About the 1 year he had been allowed to study medicine, the brief taste of purpose and passion before it was taken away. About the final dinner when he had walked out, leaving behind wealth and status for freedom and poverty. Thara told him about orc culture, about the complex honor codes and the way strength was valued above all else. About her mother, a respected warrior who had died in a border skirmish when Thara was 15. About her younger sister Greta, who was everything Thara was not, diplomatic, graceful, willing to bend to the clan leader's will. "I was never good enough," Thara admitted one night, staring into the flames. "Not strong enough, not fierce enough. I questioned traditions. I showed mercy when I should have shown ruthlessness. The clan tolerated me because of my mother's reputation, but I knew they considered me a disappointment." "Then they were fools," Marcus said with such conviction that Thara looked at him in surprise. "Any clan that values cruelty over compassion is doomed to destroy itself eventually. You are not a disappointment, Thara. You are what they should aspire to be." She held his gaze for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them. Then she looked away, clearing her throat. "You have a way with words, husband." The word sent a little jolt through Marcus every time she used it. Husband. They were married, legally bound, and yet they remained careful around each other. Polite. Friendly. Marcus slept on a bedroll by the fire while Thara took the bed, and they gave each other privacy when changing or bathing. They were partners in survival, nothing more. Except Marcus was starting to want more, and that terrified him. He noticed little things. The way Thara's eyes softened when she looked at the animals, the gentleness with which she handled the goats despite her warrior's strength. The way she hummed while cooking, low and tuneless, but somehow soothing. The rare, genuine smiles that transformed her whole face, making her breathtaking. He caught himself watching her more and more often, memorizing the precise shade of her green skin, the way her tusks caught the light, the graceful efficiency of her movements. She was beautiful, he realized, not in spite of being an orc, but just beautiful, full stop. And that was a problem, because this was supposed to be a marriage of convenience, a business arrangement. He was not supposed to develop actual feelings for his wife. Winter arrived early that year, bringing snow and bitter cold. Marcus and Thara worked frantically to winterize the cabin, stuffing gaps with moss and mud, stockpiling firewood, smoking and preserving meat. The work left them exhausted every night, but also satisfied. They were building something together, a home that belonged to both of them. One particularly cold evening, Marcus woke from his bedroll to find Thara crouched by the dying fire, shivering. Her blankets lay on the bed where she had kicked them off in her sleep. "Thara," he sat up, concerned. "Are you all right?" "Fine," she said through chattering teeth. "Just cold." The fire went out. Marcus quickly rebuilt the fire, coaxing flames from embers and feeding in fresh wood. But even once it was blazing, Thara continued to shiver. Orcs ran hot normally, he had learned. For her to be this cold meant something was wrong. "Is your wound hurting?" he asked, moving closer. "No, it has healed well, I am just—" She trailed off, looking embarrassed. "My people do not handle extreme cold as well as humans. It is one of our weaknesses." Marcus did not think, he just acted. He grabbed his blanket from his bedroll and draped it over her shoulders, then sat beside her, close enough to share body heat. "Marcus, you do not need to hush. We are partners, remember? We help each other." Thara fell silent, but slowly she leaned into him, accepting his warmth. Marcus wrapped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her closer, and felt her gradually stop shivering. She was solid and warm against his side, and it felt absolutely right to hold her like this. "Thank you," she whispered after a while. "Always." They sat like that until dawn, neither wanting to break the spell. And when the sun finally rose, turning the snow outside into diamond sparkle, something between them had shifted. They did not speak of it, but Marcus saw the way Thara's eyes lingered on him now. Felt the electric charge when their hands accidentally touched. The careful distance they had maintained was crumbling, and neither of them seemed eager to rebuild it. 3 days after the cold night, a stranger arrived at their door. Marcus opened it to find a tall human man on horseback, wearing the colors of his family. His heart sank. He had known this was coming eventually, but he had hoped for more time. "Marcus Bellamy?" the man asked, though his expression said he already knew the answer. "Yes. I am a messenger from the Bellamy estate. Your family requests your presence for the winter solstice gathering." The man's eyes flicked past Marcus to where Thara stood behind him, and his lip curled in disgust. "Though given the circumstances, I imagine that invitation may be rescinded." "Tell my family I have no interest in their gatherings," Marcus said coldly. "And you can tell them that my wife and I are very happy here." The messenger's horse shifted nervously as Thara moved to stand beside Marcus, her hand resting on the knife at her belt. She said nothing, but her presence was a clear message. The messenger paled. "I will deliver your response," he said stiffly, turning his horse. "Though I warn you, your father is not pleased." "He never is," Marcus muttered, closing the door. Thara looked at him with concern. "That was from your family?" "Yes. They heard about our marriage, apparently, probably hoping I would come crawling back, begging forgiveness." He laughed bitterly. "They do not know me very well." "Are you certain?" Thara asked quietly. "This life is hard, Marcus. You gave up wealth and comfort." "If you regret—" "I regret nothing," Marcus said fiercely, taking her hands in his. "Do you hear me? Nothing. I would choose this cabin and this life and you 1,000 times over that gilded prison." Thara's breath caught. "Marcus." He realized suddenly how close they were standing, how her hands felt in his, strong and warm. How her amber eyes had gone wide and dark. How badly he wanted to kiss her. "I should check on the animals," he said abruptly, releasing her hands and stepping back. He grabbed his coat and fled into the cold, his heart hammering. What was he doing? This was supposed to be a business arrangement. She had agreed to marry him out of practicality, not affection. He could not ruin their partnership by developing feelings, by wanting more than she was willing to give. He spent the rest of the day working outside, only coming in when darkness fell, and the cold became unbearable. Thara had made dinner, a rich stew that filled the cabin with savory smells. They ate in awkward silence, neither addressing the moment from earlier. That night, Marcus lay in his bedroll and stared at the ceiling, listening to Thara toss and turn in the bed. Sleep would not come. His mind kept replaying that moment, the look in her eyes, the way her hands had trembled slightly in his. "Marcus," her voice was soft in the darkness. "Yes, I cannot sleep." "Neither can I." A pause. "Then, will you tell me about your studies, the medical training you did?" Grateful for the distraction, Marcus began to talk. He described the physician he had apprenticed with, a gruff old man named Dr. Hendricks, who saw past the wealthy family name to the genuine interest beneath. He explained the basics of anatomy, of how the body healed itself, of the delicate balance that was health. He got so caught up in the telling that he did not notice Thara had gotten out of bed until she was sitting beside his bedroll, wrapped in her blanket, listening with rapt attention. "You loved it," she said when he finished. "The medicine, you loved it the way I love hunting." "I did, I do." He met her eyes in the firelight. "It was the only time I felt like I was doing something that mattered, helping people, easing pain. My family saw it as beneath us, but it was the only thing I ever wanted to do." "You could do it again," Thara said thoughtfully. "There are people in Greywater Crossing, farmers and frontier folk who need medical care. You have the knowledge. I would need supplies, medicines, tools. I spent the last of my money on the farm and our marriage. Then we earn money. I can hunt and trap, sell the furs and meat. You can take on medical work. We build this together." She smiled at him, fierce and determined. "Partners, remember." Marcus felt something unlock in his chest. She was not just agreeing to help him. She was offering to build a future together, a real future beyond just survival. She believed in him, in his dreams, in a way no one ever had before. Partners, he agreed, his voice rough with emotion. They sat together by the fire, planning late into the night. Thara would establish trap lines in the forest, focusing on the valuable winter furs that traders paid well for. Marcus would let it be known in town that he offered medical services. They would save every coin, slowly building toward the equipment and supplies he needed. It was a good plan, a solid plan. But more than that, it was their plan, not his family's expectations or her clan's demands. Theirs. As the fire burned low and exhaustion finally caught up with them, Marcus realized Thara had fallen asleep leaning against his shoulder. He should wake her, send her back to the bed. Instead, he carefully shifted them both so they were lying on his bedroll together. Thara curled against his chest, his arms wrapped protectively around her. She made a small, contented sound in her sleep and burrowed closer. Marcus pressed his face into her hair, breathing in the scent of her, wood smoke and pine and something uniquely Thara. This was dangerous. This was crossing lines they had carefully maintained, but he could not bring himself to care. He fell asleep holding her, and it was the best rest he had had in years. They woke tangled together, early morning light streaming through the window. For a moment, neither moved, both pretending to still be asleep. Then Thara stirred, lifting her head to look at him with those impossibly expressive eyes. "Good morning, husband," she said softly. "Good morning, wife. We fell asleep together. We did. Perhaps." She hesitated, then continued with the bravery of a warrior charging into battle. "Perhaps we should stop pretending this is purely a business arrangement." Marcus's heart stopped, then started again at double speed. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I think about you constantly. I mean that I find excuses to touch you, to be near you. I mean that when you hold me, I feel safer and happier than I have ever felt in my life." Her voice was shaking now, but she held his gaze. "I mean that somewhere between you saving my life and us building this home together, I fell in love with you, Marcus Bellamy. And I am terrified that you do not feel the same, that I am ruining what we have, but I cannot keep pretending anymore." Marcus could not breathe, could not think, could only feel the overwhelming rush of joy and relief and love flooding through him. "Thara," he managed, his voice breaking. "I have been in love with you for weeks. I have been terrified to say anything because I thought you only saw me as a convenient partner. I thought you would leave once you were healed and settled." "Leave?" She cupped his face with both hands, her touch infinitely gentle. "You foolish, wonderful man. Where would I go? This is my home. You are my home." He kissed her then, finally closing the distance he had been maintaining for so long. Her lips were soft against his, her tusks brushing his mouth in a way that sent shivers down his spine. She made a small sound of surprise and pleasure, then kissed him back with a passion that stole what little breath he had left. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Thara was smiling so widely it must have hurt. "I love you," Marcus said, because now that he had said it once, he wanted to say it 1,000 times. "I love you so much it terrifies me." "I love you too," Thara whispered. "My fierce, gentle, impossible husband." They spent that morning learning each other in ways they had not allowed themselves before. Soft touches and whispered words, kisses that ranged from gentle to desperate and back again. They talked about what this meant, how their relationship would change, what they both wanted from this marriage that had become so much more than convenience. "I want forever with you," Marcus said, tracing the line of her jaw. "I want to grow old on this farm with you by my side. I want children someday if we are blessed with them. I want every morning to start like this with you in my arms." "Yes," Thara breathed. "Yes to all of it, Though I warn you, half-orc children are a handful, strong and stubborn and wild. They will be perfect, Marcus said with absolute certainty. Just like their mother. Thara laughed, bright and joyful, and pulled him down for another kiss. Their life together shifted after that morning. The careful politeness was replaced by open affection, stolen kisses while working, hands that sought each other out automatically. They moved the bedroll closer to the bed and pushed them together, creating a larger sleeping space they could share. Marcus taught Thara to read and write in the evenings, his arms wrapped around her as he guided her hand through letters. Thara taught Marcus to track and hunt, her patience endless as he fumbled through his first attempts. Winter deepened, but they barely noticed the cold. They had each other, and that was warmth enough. True to their plan, Thara established trap lines throughout the forest, bringing in valuable furs that Marcus sold in town. The merchants were still hostile, but they could not argue with the quality of the pelts. Word spread slowly that Marcus had medical knowledge, and eventually, desperate people began to seek him out. The first was a farmer with a badly infected wound on his leg. He came late at night, clearly hoping no one would see him seeking help from the man married to an orc. Marcus treated him with the same care he would have shown anyone, cleaning the wound, applying a poultice, and explaining how to change the bandages. He charged very little, just enough to buy the supplies he had used. The farmer returned a week later, his wound healing cleanly. He paid Marcus double what had been asked and told 2 of his neighbors about the treatment. Those neighbors came with their own ailments, a broken arm and a fever that would not break. Marcus treated them both successfully. Slowly, grudgingly, the frontier community began to accept that Marcus knew what he was doing. They did not accept his marriage, did not invite him or Thara to gatherings, did not treat them as equals. But they came when they needed help, and they paid for the service, and that was enough. By the time spring arrived, Marcus and Thara had saved enough to buy proper medical tools and a stock of basic medicines. Marcus set up a small clinic in a corner of the cabin, organized and ready. He felt purposeful again, useful in a way he had not since being forced to abandon his medical studies. Thara was happy too. He could see it in everything she did. She sang while working in their expanding garden, laughed freely, touched him with casual affection a dozen times a day. She was nothing like the wounded, wary woman he had found in his barn. She had bloomed like a spring flower, growing into herself without the weight of her clan's expectations crushing her. They were happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. Which was, of course, when everything went wrong. The messenger arrived in late spring, but this time he was not from Marcus's family. He was an orc, tall and heavily scarred, wearing the marks of the Red Stone clan. He approached the cabin carefully, hands visible and empty, calling out in the orc language before switching to human speech. "I seek Thara of the Red Stone clan. I am told she lives here." Thara emerged from the cabin, her face pale. "I am Thara. What does the clan want with me? They declared me dead months ago." The messenger's expression was grim. "Your sister Greta sent me. She needs you to return immediately." "There is trouble." "What kind of trouble?" Marcus asked, stepping up beside Thara and taking her hand. The messenger looked at their joined hands with surprise and something that might have been approval. "The clan leader, Ragash, has declared war on the human settlements. He claims they broke the peace treaty by attacking our hunting parties. Many in the clan oppose this, but Ragash has the support of the warriors. Your sister leads the opposition, but she is losing ground. She says you are the only one who can help her stop this madness." Thara closed her eyes briefly. "Greta always did overestimate my influence. She says the clan will listen to you because you were right. You always said showing mercy and seeking peace was not weakness. Now that war is coming, some are remembering your words." The messenger hesitated. "She also says to tell you that your life debt is fulfilled. You owe the human nothing more. You can come home." Marcus felt Thara's hand tighten on his. "I am home," she said firmly. "But if Greta needs me, I will go to her. When does she need me there? 3 days. There will be a gathering of the clan to finalize the war plans. If opposition is to be raised, it must be then. I will be there." The messenger nodded and left as quickly as he had come. Thara stood staring after him, her expression troubled. Marcus pulled her into his arms and she buried her face against his chest. "You do not have to go," he said quietly. "Your sister and your clan abandoned you. You owe them nothing." "I know. But if I do not go, innocent people will die, humans and orcs both. I cannot live with that on my conscience." She pulled back to look at him. "Will you come with me to an orc clan gathering? Would I even be allowed? You are my husband. That gives you the right to attend, though I will not lie, it will be dangerous. There are many who will see your presence as an insult, a provocation." Marcus smiled grimly. "I have spent my whole life being an insult to people. I can handle it. Besides, I am not letting you walk into danger alone." "You are a fool," Thara said, but her eyes were bright with tears. "My brave, stupid, wonderful fool." They spent the next 2 days preparing. Thara taught Marcus basic orc etiquette, the gestures of respect and the insults to avoid. Marcus packed medical supplies, knowing injuries were likely. They both understood this could end badly, that they might not return, but neither voiced those fears aloud. On the 3rd day, they set out before dawn, traveling into the deep forest toward orc territory. Thara led the way with the confidence of someone who had walked these paths 1,000 times. As they went deeper, Marcus saw signs of orc presence everywhere. Marked trees, carefully maintained paths, the remains of hunting camps. They reached the clan grounds by mid-afternoon. It was not what Marcus had expected. Instead of crude shelters, there were well-built structures of wood and stone, arranged in a circular pattern around a central meeting area. Orcs moved between the buildings, going about their daily tasks. Children played in the spaces between homes. It looked like a village, a community, not the savage camp he had been taught to imagine. Their arrival caused an immediate stir. Orcs stopped what they were doing to stare at Thara, at Marcus, at their joined hands. Marcus heard the whispers, saw the shock and anger on many faces. But Thara walked forward with her head high, every inch the warrior she had been born to be. A female orc rushed forward, younger than Thara but with similar features. Her eyes were bright with tears as she threw her arms around Thara. "You came. I was not sure you would." "Of course I came, Greta. You are my sister." Thara pulled back, keeping one arm around Marcus. "This is my husband, Marcus Bellamy." Greta looked at Marcus with open curiosity, no hostility in her gaze. "The human who saved your life and married you. Thara's letters told me much about you." "You have been writing to your sister?" Marcus asked Thara in surprise. She had the grace to look embarrassed. "I may have sent a few messages through traders. I wanted her to know I was alive and well." "A few messages," Greta laughed. "She writes every week. Long letters about the farm, about helping the humans, about how wonderful and kind and handsome you are." "Greta." Thara's face had darkened to a deeper green, which Marcus assumed was the orc equivalent of blushing. "It is good to meet you, Marcus Bellamy," Greta said warmly, extending her hand. "Any man who makes my sister this happy is a friend to me." Marcus shook her hand, liking her immediately, but their pleasant reunion was interrupted by a harsh voice. "So the exile returns, and she brings a human pet to our sacred grounds." A massive orc approached, easily a head taller than Marcus and twice as broad. His skin was a dark forest green, covered in scars that spoke of countless battles. His tusks were larger than any Marcus had seen, and his eyes burned with contempt. "Ragash," Thara said coolly, "I see you have not grown any wiser in my absence. Wisdom is knowing when to crush one's enemies, not coddle them like helpless cubs." Ragash looked at Marcus like something unpleasant stuck to his boot. "You truly married this weak thing. You dishonor your mother's memory." Marcus felt Thara tense, saw her hand move toward her knife. He squeezed her hand gently, a reminder to stay calm. They were outnumbered and surrounded. Violence would help no one. "My mother taught me that true strength lies in choosing mercy when you have the power to destroy," Thara said, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent clan grounds. "She taught me that honor means protecting the innocent, not slaughtering them for pride. If you think declaring war on defenseless settlements is what she would have wanted, then you understand nothing about her legacy." Murmurs rippled through the gathered orcs. Ragash's face darkened with rage. "You dare lecture me about honor? You, who abandoned your clan to play house with a human." "I was left for dead by my clan," Thara shot back. "Marcus found me dying in his barn and saved my life, asking nothing in return. He treated my wounds, gave me shelter, and offered me a home when my own people had given up on me. That is honor, Ragash. That is what strength looks like when it is not poisoned by pride and hatred." "She speaks truth," an older female orc said, stepping forward from the crowd. "I remember when Thara fell in battle. We searched for one day and declared her dead. We abandoned her without proof, without even recovering her body. The humans showed her more loyalty than we did." "Because he is a fool and she is weak," Ragash snarled. "This is exactly why war is necessary. Humans make us weak, make us forget our strength. We should be conquerors, not cowering in the forest." "We are not cowering," Greta said, her voice ringing clear. "We are surviving. We are building. We have trade relationships with humans now, treaties that keep both peoples safe. War will destroy all of that and leave our children orphaned, our clan broken. Better to die with honor than live on our knees. Better to live with wisdom than die for pride," Thara countered. "You talk of strength, Ragash, but you are afraid. Afraid that peace means we will lose our identity, that cooperation makes us weak. But I have lived among humans now. I have seen that they are not monsters, just people trying to survive like us. And I have learned that it takes more strength to build peace than to wage war." The gathered orcs were listening now, really listening. Marcus could see some nodding, others thoughtful. Ragash saw it too, and fury twisted his features. "You have learned nothing but betrayal," he spat. "You and your human pet are not welcome here. Leave before I have you thrown out." "The clan gathering has not yet voted on the war," Greta said firmly. "Thara has the right to speak and to be heard, unless you are afraid of what she might say." It was a clever challenge, questioning Ragash's courage in front of the entire clan. The big orc's hands clenched into fists, but he could not back down without losing face. "Fine. Let her speak at the gathering. Let everyone hear how far she has fallen. Then we will vote, and the clan will choose war and strength over her pathetic pleas for peace." He stalked away, and slowly the crowd dispersed. Greta led Marcus and Thara to a small dwelling on the edge of the clan grounds. "You can stay here until the gathering tonight," she said. "It is my home and you will be safe." "Thank you," Thara said quietly. Once they were inside, she sagged against Marcus, exhausted. "This is going to be harder than I thought." "You were magnificent out there," Marcus told her. "You stood up to him, made people think. That matters. But will it be enough?" She looked at him with worried eyes. "Marcus, if the clan votes for war, if they attack the settlements, innocent people will die. People like you, people who have only shown orcs kindness. Then we make sure they do not vote for war, Marcus said with more confidence than he felt. You speak tonight and you remind them of who they really are. Not monsters or conquerors, but people. A community. You remind them what they stand to lose. The gathering took place as the sun set, the entire clan assembling in the central meeting area. A large fire blazed in the center, casting dancing shadows on the faces of the orcs who formed a circle around it. Marcus stood with Thara and Greta, very aware of the hostile stares directed his way. But Thara kept her hand firmly in his, a clear statement that they were together in this. Ragash spoke first, his voice booming across the gathering. He talked of orc pride, of past glories, of the insult of living in the shadow of human expansion. He spoke of warriors who had been killed by human raiders, of the disrespect shown to orc territories. His words were powerful, appealing to anger and fear and wounded pride. Many orcs cheered when he finished. Marcus felt his stomach sink. How could they counter that kind of passionate rhetoric? But then Thara stepped forward and the gathering fell silent. She stood straight and proud, the firelight turning her green skin to gold. Ragash speaks of pride and honor, she began, her voice steady and clear. He speaks of warriors who died at human hands. I do not dispute those deaths or dismiss that pain. But I ask you this, how many humans have died at orc hands? How many of their farmers have we killed? How many of their hunters? If we tally the deaths on both sides, we will find ourselves equally guilty, equally bloodied. She paused, letting her words sink in. I was left for dead after such a skirmish. Human raiders attacked my hunting party, and I was separated and wounded. My clan searched for me for one day and declared me dead. But a human found me bleeding in his barn, and instead of finishing the job those raiders started, he saved my life. He treated my wounds with skill and kindness. He gave me shelter and asked nothing in return. She looked at Marcus, and the love in her eyes was visible to everyone. That human became my husband, not through force or coercion, but through choice. We built a home together, a life together. And in that life, I have learned something important. Humans are not our enemies. They are not monsters or demons. They are people just like us. They love their families. They work their land. They hope for peace and prosperity for their children. Pretty words, Ragash interrupted. But words do not stop human expansion, do not bring back our dead. No, they do not, Thara agreed. But war will not bring them back either. War will only create more widows, more orphans, more death on both sides. And in the end, we will still be here, trying to share this land, but with so much blood between us that peace becomes impossible. What do you propose instead? An older male orc called out. That we simply accept human dominance. I propose that we are smarter than that, Thara said. I propose that we recognize humans are here to stay, just as we are. That we establish real treaties, not just temporary truces. That we trade instead of raid, negotiate instead of attack. That we teach our children humans are neighbors, not enemies, so that the next generation does not inherit our hatred. You speak like a human lover, Ragash sneered. You have forgotten what it means to be orc. No, Thara said quietly. I have remembered what it means to be alive. I have remembered that survival is more important than pride, that our children's future matters more than avenging our past, and I have learned that the strongest thing we can do is choose peace when war would be easier. She gestured to Marcus. This man has shown me more honor and respect than any orc ever did. He married me knowing it would make him an outcast among his own people. He gave up wealth and comfort to build a life with me. He treats me as an equal, a partner, a person worthy of love. That is strength, that is honor. And if a human can show me that, then maybe we can show it to them." The gathering was silent now, every orc listening intently. Marcus saw tears on some faces, thoughtfulness on others. Thara had reached them in a way Ragash's anger never could. "I ask you to choose life over death," Thara concluded. "I ask you to choose the hard path of peace over the easy path of war. I ask you to be brave enough to hope that we can build something better for our children. And I ask you to remember that every human we kill has a family who will mourn them, just as we mourn our own. That is not weakness. That is wisdom." She stepped back, and for a long moment no one spoke. Then Greta stepped forward. "I vote for peace," she said clearly. "I vote to give diplomacy and treaty a real chance. I vote to honor my sister's courage and wisdom." "As do I," the older female orc who had spoken earlier said. "We have lost too much already. Let us not lose our humanity as well." One by one, orcs stepped forward to voice their support for peace. Not all of them, not even most at first, but enough that momentum shifted. Marcus watched in amazement as Thara's words bore fruit, as minds changed and hearts softened. Ragash stood rigid, his face twisted with fury. "You are all fools. You will doom the clan with this weakness." "We will save the clan with this wisdom," an elderly orc corrected gently. "Thara is right. War will destroy us. Peace gives us a chance to thrive." When the final vote was tallied, peace had won by a narrow but clear margin. The clan would not go to war. Instead, they would send emissaries to the human settlements to negotiate proper treaties and trade agreements. Ragash stormed away, taking his supporters with him, but the majority of the clan remained, celebrating the decision. Thara was immediately surrounded by orcs wanting to thank her, to touch her as if to confirm she was real. Marcus hung back, giving her this moment with her people, but Thara kept looking back at him, making sure he was still there, and eventually she broke away from the crowd to return to his side. "You did it," Marcus said, pulling her close. "You saved them." "We did it," Thara corrected. "Your example, your kindness, gave me the words to speak. You showed me that peace was possible." Greta joined them, her smile wide and joyful. "You were always meant for greatness, sister." "I am so glad you found it." "I found love," Thara said, looking at Marcus. "Everything else followed from that." They stayed with the clan for 3 more days, helping to draft the framework for the peace negotiations. Marcus found himself consulted frequently, as the only human present who could offer insight into human concerns and perspectives. The orcs were wary of him at first, but his genuine desire to help build lasting peace won many of them over. On the 3rd evening, Thara's mother's sister, an orc named Vasha, approached them. She was a stern woman, heavily scarred, and Marcus had assumed she disapproved of their marriage, but she surprised him by bowing slightly. "I owe you an apology, human. When I heard Thara had married your kind, I thought she had betrayed everything her mother stood for, but I was wrong. Her mother would be proud of what she has become, of the bridge she is building between our peoples, and that bridge begins with you." She looked at Marcus with respect. "You honor our clan with your presence and your wisdom." "The honor is mine," Marcus said sincerely. "Thara is the bravest person I have ever known. I am lucky to call her my wife." Vasha smiled, a rare expression on her stern face. "Treat her well, and you will always have the protection of the Red Stone clan." "Always," Marcus promised. When they finally left to return home, half the clan turned out to see them off. Greta hugged them both fiercely, tears streaming down her face. "Visit soon," she demanded. "And write more often. I want to hear everything." "I promise," Thara said, her own voice thick with emotion. "And you must come visit us. Our home is always open to you." The journey back was quieter than the journey there. They were both exhausted, emotionally wrung out from the intensity of the gathering, but they were also at peace, walking hand in hand through the forest they both loved. "You think it will last?" Marcus asked. "The peace, I mean." "I do not know," Thara admitted. "Ragash will not give up his ambitions easily, but we have given them a chance, a foundation to build on. That is more than existed before. You were incredible back there. The way you spoke, the way you made them listen, I was in awe." Thara stopped walking and turned to face him. "I could only speak those words because you showed me they were true. Before I met you, I thought peace between humans and orcs was impossible. I thought I would always be an outcast, caught between two worlds. But you gave me a third option, a world where human and orc can build something together. A world where love matters more than prejudice." "I love you," Marcus said simply. "That is the only world I want to live in." "Then let us build it together," Thara said, kissing him softly. "One day at a time, one person at a time, we will show them all that it can work." They reached their cabin as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The animals greeted them enthusiastically, and everything was exactly as they had left it. Home, Marcus thought. This was home in a way the mansion had never been. That night they lay together in their bed, wrapped in each other's arms. The world outside still held challenges and prejudice and fear. But here, in this cabin they had built together, they had created something pure and good. They had created love. "You ever regret it?" Thara asked softly. "Giving up your family, your wealth, all of it?" "Never," Marcus said without hesitation. "I regret the wasted years trying to please them, trying to be someone I was not. But walking away, finding you, building this life, that is the best decision I ever made." "Even though you did it originally just to spite them," Marcus laughed. "Yes, well, spite is a powerful motivator. But somewhere between marrying you to anger my family and now, it became about so much more. It became about us, about the life we are building, about the love we share. My family was just the catalyst. You are the reason." Thara traced patterns on his chest with one finger. "I was so angry when I first realized why you wanted to marry me. I thought you saw me as a tool for your revenge, nothing more. But you showed me every day that I mattered to you, that you saw me as a person, not a means to an end. You earned my trust and then my love. That is a rare gift, Marcus." "You are the gift," Marcus said, tilting her face up to kiss her. "You are everything I never knew I needed and everything I will always want." They made love slowly, tenderly, celebrating their survival and their love. And afterward, as Thara drifted off to sleep in his arms, Marcus stared at the ceiling and thought about the future. Children, he hoped. A family built on love rather than obligation. A medical practice that served both humans and orcs, building bridges one patient at a time. A farm that thrived through their combined efforts. A life that proved every day that peace was possible, that love conquered prejudice, that choosing kindness over cruelty was always the right path. His family would never understand. They would see his life as a failure, a waste of potential. But Marcus knew better. This was success in the only way that mattered. This was happiness, genuine and earned. This was love. Spring turned to summer, and word of what had happened at the orc gathering spread through the frontier. The human settlements sent representatives to meet with the orc emissaries, and slowly, carefully, a real peace treaty began to take shape. Marcus and Thara found themselves acting as informal mediators, their mixed marriage giving them credibility with both sides. It was not easy. There were setbacks and arguments, old wounds that would not heal quickly. But progress was made, inch by hard-fought inch. Trade routes were established, boundaries were agreed upon, mechanisms for resolving disputes without violence were created. And through it all, Marcus and Thara's cabin became a symbol of what was possible. Humans and orcs who had never spoken to each other before found themselves sitting at their table, sharing meals, learning that the other side was not so different after all. One evening, a familiar figure appeared at their door. Marcus opened it to find his younger cousin, a girl named Catherine who had always been kind to him, standing on his doorstep looking nervous. "Marcus," she said tentatively, "I hope I am not intruding." "Catherine," Marcus stared in shock. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see you, to see if the rumors were true, if you really had married an orc and built a life out here." She looked past him into the cabin. "And to tell you that not everyone in the family thinks you are crazy." Marcus invited her in, his heart pounding. Catherine's eyes went wide when she saw Thara, but she did not recoil or show disgust. Instead, she stepped forward and offered a small curtsy. "You must be Thara. I am Catherine, Marcus's cousin. It is an honor to meet you." Thara looked at Marcus with surprise, then smiled at Catherine. "The honor is mine. Any family of Marcus who does not immediately try to kill me is welcome in our home." Catherine laughed nervously. "I deserve that. I am sorry for how the family treated you, Marcus, what they said about you, but I want you to know that some of us understood why you left. And seeing this, seeing what you have built, I think you made the right choice." They talked late into the night. Catherine explained that Marcus's brother Gerald had married the girl intended for Marcus and was miserable, that his parents were even more bitter and controlling than before, that the family business was faltering due to poor decisions and stubbornness. "They will never admit it, but they need you," Catherine said. "Your kindness, your integrity, your willingness to see beyond profit and status. But I know you will not come back, and honestly, I do not blame you. You have something here they could never give you." "What is that?" Marcus asked. "Freedom, love, purpose." Catherine smiled at Thara. "A partner who sees you as you are and loves you for it. That is worth more than all the gold in the family coffers." "You are wise beyond your years," Thara observed. "I had a good example," Catherine said, looking at Marcus. "Even when the family was trying to crush your spirit, you never lost your kindness. You showed me that strength and gentleness are not opposites. Thank you for that." Catherine stayed for 2 days, helping with the farm work and learning about the peace efforts. When she left, she hugged Marcus tightly. "I will visit again if you allow it, and I will tell anyone who asks that you are happy and successful and exactly where you belong." "You are always welcome here," Marcus said sincerely. "Family is not just blood. It is the people who see you and love you anyway." Summer turned to autumn, and Thara realized her courses had not come in 2 months. They looked at each other with dawning wonder and terror. "I might be pregnant," she whispered. Marcus felt joy explode through him, so intense it was almost painful. "Truly, I think so. I need to be sure, but the signs are there." They went to the nearest village with a midwife, an old woman who had delivered half the babies in the territory. She confirmed what they had suspected. Thara was indeed pregnant, about 2 months along. "A half-orc baby," the midwife said matter-of-factly. "I have never delivered one before, but I know the basics. They grow faster than human babies and the birth can be difficult. But with care and preparation, there is no reason to think anything will go wrong." Marcus floated through the next weeks in a haze of joy. A baby. Their baby. A child born of love between human and orc, a living symbol of the peace they were trying to build. Thara was more practical, preparing the cabin, gathering supplies, and reading every text on pregnancy and childbirth Marcus could find. Her pregnancy progressed quickly, her belly swelling faster than a human woman's would. By the time winter arrived, she was clearly showing and the baby was active, kicking strongly enough that Marcus could feel it through her skin. "He is going to be a fighter," Thara said fondly, her hand on her stomach. Just like his mother, or she will be a healer, Marcus countered. Just like her father. Why not both? Thara suggested. A fighter and a healer, the best of both of us. They spent the winter preparing, turning the cabin's small second room into a nursery. Marcus built a cradle from wood he carved himself, each piece sanded smooth so there were no rough edges. Thara sewed blankets and clothes, her large hands surprisingly deft with needle and thread. The baby came in early spring, during a thunderstorm that shook the cabin's walls. Marcus delivered his own child, his hands steady despite his terror, guided by Thara's courage and the midwife's instructions. It was the longest night of his life, watching Thara in pain, unable to do anything but support her and pray. But when dawn broke, so did the sound of a baby crying, strong and healthy and absolutely perfect. A daughter, Marcus said, tears streaming down his face as he placed the baby in Thara's arms. We have a daughter. She was beautiful, with green-tinged skin lighter than Thara's but darker than Marcus's, tiny tusks barely visible, and a shock of black hair. Her eyes, when they opened, were brown like Marcus's, but her pointed ears were pure orc. She was both and neither, something entirely new. "What should we name her?" Thara asked, her voice exhausted but joyful. Marcus thought of all the names his family would have insisted on, family names passed down through generations, chosen for political advantage rather than meaning. He wanted something different for his daughter. "Hope," he said. "Let us name her Hope because she represents everything we hope for the future." "Hope Bellamy," Thara said, testing the name. "Yes, it is perfect." The first year of Hope's life was chaos and joy in equal measure. She grew faster than a human baby, reaching milestones weeks or months ahead of schedule. She was strong, able to grip Marcus's finger hard enough to hurt by the time she was a month old. But she was also gentle, laughing instead of crying most of the time, curious about everything. News of her birth spread quickly through both the human and orc communities. Some saw her as an abomination, proof that the natural order was being violated. But others saw her, as Marcus and Thara did, as hope, as proof that two peoples could come together and create something beautiful. Greta visited regularly, doting on her niece with shameless abandon. Catherine came too, bringing gifts and staying for weeks at a time. She had left the Bellamy family, unable to stomach their cruelty any longer, and Marcus helped her establish a small shop in Greywater Crossing. She became part of their chosen family, the aunt who spoiled Hope with books and toys. By Hope's first birthday, the peace treaty between humans and orcs had been formalized. Trade flowed freely, joint patrols kept the frontier safe, and while prejudice still existed, it was no longer acceptable to act on it violently. It was not perfect, but it was progress. And through it all, Marcus and Thara's love only deepened. They had been through so much together: injury and healing, conflict and peace, hardship and joy. They had built something real and lasting, a family that proved love was stronger than hate. One evening, as they sat on their porch watching Hope toddle around the yard chasing fireflies, Thara leaned against Marcus's shoulder. "You remember the day we met?" she asked. "When you found me bleeding in your barn?" "Every detail," Marcus said. "I was terrified and determined in equal measure. I knew helping you could bring me trouble, but I could not walk away." "I thought you were either a fool or a saint," Thara admitted. "I could not understand why a human would risk so much for an orc. And now—" "Now I know you are both," she said with a smile. "A foolish saint who saw a person in need rather than an enemy, who offered kindness when cruelty would have been easier, who changed my life and probably saved my soul." "You give me too much credit," Marcus protested. "I was just doing what was right." "Exactly," Thara said. You did what was right even when it was hard, even when it cost you everything you had known. That is heroism, Marcus. That is love." Hope squealed with delight as she caught a firefly, cupping it gently in her hands before releasing it. She ran to them, her face glowing with joy, and climbed into Marcus's lap. "Papa, did you see? I caught the light bug." "I saw, sweetheart. You were very gentle with it. I am proud of you." Hope beamed, then scrambled over to Thara. "Mama, can we have stew for dinner, with the mushrooms I picked?" "Of course we can. You are becoming quite the forager." As Hope ran off to play some more, Marcus pulled Thara close. "This is everything I never knew I wanted. This life, this family, this love. You gave that to me." "We gave it to each other," Thara corrected. "You showed me I could be more than what my clan expected. I showed you that you could be free of your family's expectations. We saved each other, Marcus." "Then let us keep saving each other," Marcus said, kissing her softly. "Every day for the rest of our lives." "Deal," Thara said, returning his kiss with one of her own. The sun set over their little farm, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Inside the cabin, dinner waited to be cooked. In the garden, vegetables grew strong and healthy. In the barn, animals settled in for the night. And on the porch, a family sat together, bound by love and choice and the courage to defy expectations. Marcus had married an orc woman to spite his cruel family. But somewhere along the way, spite had transformed into love, and revenge had become redemption. He had lost a family that never truly valued him, and gained one that saw him for exactly who he was. And Thara, who had been left for dead by her clan, had found life and love in the most unexpected place. She had learned that home was not a place or a people, but a feeling. The feeling of being seen, being valued, being loved without conditions or expectations. Together, they had built something that should not have been possible. A marriage between human and orc. A love that bridged two worlds. A child who represented the future they were fighting to create. A life filled with purpose and joy, and the bone-deep satisfaction of knowing they were making the world better, one day at a time. As night fell and stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Marcus thought about the young man who had slammed out of his family's mansion in anger and heartbreak. That man had been lost, desperate, driven by spite and wounded pride. He would never have imagined this future, never have believed such happiness was possible. But that man had made one good choice in his anger. He had chosen freedom over comfort, authenticity over approval. And that choice had led him here, to this porch, to this woman, to this life. Everything else had followed naturally, one step building on the last, until spite had transformed into love and a marriage of convenience had become a partnership of souls. "What are you thinking about?" Thara asked, always able to read his moods. "About choices," Marcus said. "About how one good choice can change everything. About how grateful I am that you were in my barn that day." "And I am grateful you were foolish enough to help me," Thara said warmly. "Though I suppose we should thank your family too, in a way. If they had not driven you away, we never would have met." "True. Though I am not quite ready to thank them yet, maybe in another decade or two." Thara laughed, the sound rich and full. "Fair enough. For now, let us just be grateful for what we have. For this life we built together." "Always," Marcus agreed. They sat together as darkness fell completely, watching Hope play with tireless energy despite the late hour. They would call her in soon, feed her dinner, and tuck her into the cradle Marcus had made with such love. They would bank the fire and prepare for bed, wrapped in each other's arms the way they did every night. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The farm needed tending. Marcus had patients scheduled in his clinic. Thara was helping train a group of young orcs and humans together, teaching them to hunt and track as a team. There would be setbacks and struggles, prejudice that would not die easily, old wounds that would ache in the cold, but there would also be love. There would be laughter and joy and the simple satisfaction of honest work. There would be hope, growing strong and beautiful, proof that different peoples could come together and create something wonderful. There would be each other, partners in every sense of the word, facing the world side by side. Marcus Bellamy had set out to spite his cruel family by marrying an orc woman. But he had ended up finding the greatest treasure of his life: love, real and deep and transformative. Love that healed old wounds and built new dreams. Love that proved the cynics wrong and the romantics right. He had married Thara to hurt his family. He had fallen in love with her because she was extraordinary. And he would spend the rest of his life grateful for both decisions, for the spite that brought them together and the love that kept them that way. This was his happy ending, his fresh start, his reward for choosing freedom over comfort and kindness over cruelty. This was everything that mattered, everything that was real. This was home. And as Thara called Hope inside and Marcus stood to help prepare dinner, as their little family moved through the evening rituals they had built together, he knew with absolute certainty that he would make the same choices again in a heartbeat. Every hardship, every sacrifice, every moment of doubt had been worth it to reach this place, this life, this love. He had walked away from everything he had known, driven by anger and hurt and desperate determination. He had found a wounded orc in his barn and made the choice to help rather than harm. He had offered marriage as revenge and discovered partnership instead. And through it all, step by unexpected step, he had found his way home, not to a place or a people, but to a person. To Thara, who had taken his hand and walked beside him every day since. To Hope, who represented all their dreams made manifest. To this life they had built from nothing, this family born of choice rather than obligation, this love that had conquered prejudice and fear and hate. Marcus Bellamy had married the orc woman to spite his cruel family. And then, in the greatest twist of fate he could have imagined, he had fallen completely, irrevocably, wonderfully in love with her. That spite had saved him, but that love had made him whole. And as he stood in his cabin with his wife and daughter, preparing dinner on a spring evening while the first stars appeared overhead, Marcus smiled. Because this, all of this, was exactly where he belonged. This was exactly who he was meant to be. And he would not trade it for anything in the world, not wealth or status or his family's approval. This love, this life, this family was worth everything he had given up and more. He had found his happy ending, and it was more beautiful than any fairy tale he could have imagined.